Motorola One Zoom camera review. Hello my dear friends, how are you? I hope you are well and in good health. Today I have a new and important video with you, which is a review of the Motorola One Zoom camera. I hope you like it, but before you watch the video, subscribe to the channel to receive everything new and useful. Now let's continue the explanation. Main camera specifications. Rear camera system, 3 cameras plus TOF sensor. Ultra wide, ~13mm 16 mpf/2.2 ultra wide. Primary, ~23mm 48 mpf/1.7 wide, primary, plus OIS. Zoom, ~70mm 8 mpf/2.4 telephoto plus OIS. The Motorola Zoom 1, about $450 at press time, has a solid feature set for its price, with 3 cameras that provide hardware support for all the common scenarios we test. In the fast-changing camera market, technical specifications may be challenged by other competitors, but in September 2019, it was pretty decent when this phone was launched. Note that this camera system software does not always use the camera's native resolution, but suggests either 12MP or 8MP for all cameras. It's a bit unusual and is a possible explanation for why some images look downscaled or filtered for better aliasing. Image quality analysis important. Let's clarify some of the terms we will use. Image processing, software work that improves the quality of image data. Image filtering, a software action that changes the style, aesthetic, of an image. Context image, a great approximation of what we see, including how dark the scene actually is, just to provide context for the snapshot. Not a quality standard. A note about camera IQ. Our camera recording system is based on 4 pillars or subgrades that provide much needed nuance: day, night, zoom and ultra wide. Photography in daylight and daylight photography. The Motorola One Zoom performs very well, capturing images with very good dynamic range and acceptable colors. In many ways, it's comparable to some of the best cameras on the market, like the Samsung Galaxy Note 10. Above, the One Zoom camera does a good job of preserving texture and detail that's comparable to some of the best 12-megapixel cameras we've tested. Above, you can see that detail is very similar to the Note 10, and it would take a higher megapixel count to really see the difference. We can look at another crop that illustrates several things. First, a context image that may look a little overexposed, but shows a good approximation of the actual brightness of the scene, something HDR tends to attenuate, sometimes too much. However, Hyper HDR can also show more detail, so shaded areas tend to have slightly better HDR than the Galaxy Note 10, for example. Above, a shot with the Mate 30 Pro shows how this phone captures images that are more realistic and effectively reflect the mood of the scene, including color and brightness details. The Moto One Zoom uses more image filtering, which makes things a bit more blurry. Below, the Note 10 Pro displays some of the same color behaviors, but with more detail across the board. The tree on the left or the street signs are places where it is easy to see the differences. The Note 10 also shows a strong, sharp halo, ringing, along the black wires if you don't like it. Filming in broad daylight. The Motorola One Zoom does very well at daylight photography and can compete effectively with some of the best camera phones on the market, with the exception of the Galaxy S20 Ultra and Mate 30 Pro, but against the iPhone 11 Pro or Galaxy S10 series, it holds its own. Night photography. In low light photography, the Motorola One Zoom's performance is lower than that of both the iPhone 11 Pro and Galaxy Note 10, and will be closer to what the LG G8 Thinks camera, or the Huawei P30's camera, would do. This is still a very good level of performance, especially for the price, but it is not the highest that can be done in 2019. The scene above is interesting because it has texture, brick and wood panels, HDR, windows and street lighting, but it also has shaded areas where we can see what the sensors are picking up. The contextual image shows a very good approximation of the perceived image as seen by the human eye. Below, all smartphones tend to bright things, so keep in mind that brighter doesn't always mean better in the context of night photography. Both images look good, but the Galaxy Note 10 can capture subtle colors like warm tones in the windows all the way to the right, where the Motorola One Zoom captures an almost monochromatic tone. Although the exposure in the center is very good in both images, the top right square window is better exposed on the Galaxy Note. Soft illumination for low light photos, -0.4 lux, when there are no highlights. Most dynamic range issues disappear and we can look at a more raw version of the camera's light gathering ability. Our colored bottle scene was shot at 0.4 lux, which is very low, but your eyes can still perceive shape and color. However, it is a challenge for cameras since different strategies for collecting details such as high ISO sensitivity may compromise colors. White balance is also an important issue when the light is very dim. The noise level is quite visible, and is explained by the fact that Motorola's setup used a high ISO sensitivity, ~7184, and a relatively high shutter speed, 1/10 second, to photograph this scene. We expected the Motorola One Zoom to perform better in these conditions, and it appears to be a case where high ISO was chosen rather than reducing multi-frame noise and light buildup. For example, the Galaxy S8 takes a better photo in this type of situation. That's how far it is even in 2017, but it uses a slow shutter speed of 1/4 second, so the low noise comes at a small price in the user experience. Night photography conclusion. The Motorola One Zoom has good low light photography, and although it could do better with HDR and color, it has good noise reduction and takes acceptable night photos. HDR issues will be the most noticeable difference with higher rated mobile cameras, but when cropped things like noise and detail will make a noticeable difference depending on the size of the crop. Ultra-wide photography. The presence of an ultra-wide camera module helps the Motorola One Zoom a lot since we consider ultra-wide photography as a core capability. In daylight, the One Zoom camera performs very well, and thanks to its new hardware, it performs better than a camera like the LG V40 or ZTE Accent 10 Pro, and competes with the LG G8 Think or Huawei P30. Above, the LG V40 takes a sharp photo, but with the reference photo, you can clearly see that LG is over-implementing HDR and losing a lot of the original contrast and mood of the scene. The photo looks flatter. Without a reference, you'll never know. The Motorola One Zoom does a very good job of preserving the original mood and colors of a scene, even if it's not perfect. It never is. The cropped view will show you how details are captured by different cameras as well. The cropped image is pretty much a textbook example of how the bright stuff associated with aggressive noise filtering can destroy a lot of data. We have an article that talks about how image filtering can destroy image data. Details on the tree and wooden fence are clearly higher on the Motorola One Zoom versus the LG V40, which at one time was the best ultra-wide portable camera in the world. Meanwhile, the LG phone's HDR Plus technology brings out more detail in the bushes, but we need to prioritize here. The Galaxy Note 10 does a great job of capturing detail, especially if you take into account that it has a much wider lens, so the area of the image we're looking at is much smaller than that of the Motorola One Zoom. Ultra-wide low light at night. The Motorola One Zoom's ultra-wide shooting capabilities can't compare to leading cameras. In our tests, we found it close to the same camera as the Huawei P30, although there are noticeable differences. The level of detail is comparable, but the One Zoom is less noisy, which puts it slightly ahead in night photography. Motorola's camera team has done a pretty good job of extracting performance from what appears to be not particularly impressive camera hardware. The f/2.2 aperture is somewhat of a drawback in ultra-fast night photography and is the likely cause of lower image quality at night. However, we estimate that the sensor size is slightly larger than that of the Huawei P30. Motorola's general camera adjustment is good, and when there's a lot of light, the One Zoom performs very well. If Motorola had used the sensor's native 16MP resolution, rather than downsampling to 12MP, it might have performed slightly better with detail and texture, perhaps at a slightly higher noise price, but that doesn't seem to be an issue so far. Zoom photography. To illustrate the zoom photography test, we can look at how to zoom in from the scene below. The context photo was taken using 1x zoom, but we'll then use 10x zoom, 8x max for the Pixel 2, to capture as many details from the city skyline as possible. And since we're looking at this on the web, and perhaps on mobile, we can crop things more to make it easier to spot differences. Also for reference, We'll throw in the Google Pixel 2, a phone that doesn't have a dedicated zoom lens. Although the Google Pixel 3 proved that you can squeeze out extra detail with the algorithm, our Pixel 3 review also showed that the software won't turn your 24mm lens into a 52mm lens. The difference is staggering, and that alone should convince you that better hardware makes a big difference. If you look at the specifications superficially, the difference should be much greater than this. However, the 8MP resolution and smaller sensor of the Zoom One's telephoto camera may explain why the 12MP sensor and larger sensor, our estimate, of the Note 10 zoom camera ended up with only a slight advantage for Motorola. The Mate 30 Pro's 80mm telephoto camera has a similar sensor configuration as the Motorola One Zoom. However, the slightly increased focal length captures more detail, and the Mate 30 Pro's better exposure in this scene likely saved some detail from washing out as well. The Mate 30 Pro's distortions that can be seen on straight lines are due to Huawei's own sharpening filter, which we discussed in our Mate 30 Pro camera review. Zoom photography conclusion: the Motorola One Zoom actually has very good zoom capabilities. However, down the market, $450, better telephoto prowess can be found in cameras like the Honor 20 Pro's telephoto camera, or the excellent Xiaomi Mi Note 10/CC9 camera. Conclusion and camera intelligence. With a camera IQ score of 168, the Motorola One Zoom finds itself in a tight battle with sub-$500 phones like the Galaxy S10e or Huawei P30. Overall, the Motorola One Zoom camera does a good job of expanding capabilities across all aspects of mobile photography, but it needs improvement in specific areas to increase its competitiveness. The most notable contender in this price range is the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 camera, which we found to be the best portable camera under $500, at time of publishing, with a camera IQ score of 182. At the end of the video, I hope you liked it, and see you in a new video.